everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
What is happening, Rush Nation? Here we are, back with the matchups part of the Fantasy Football Bible for week 2. Got a few games left to wrap up. Apologise for being a little bit sleepy this morning. It was very early. I was woken up by builders where I was staying, unfortunately. It was stupid o'clock. But I wanted to get something out to you, and I plan on getting something out to you. So that is the way that we roll. But we're going ahead. We've got 5 games, 3 in the late slate. Then we have Sunday night football, Monday night football. So let's get straight into it with Cardinals v Rams. Really exciting divisional game here. But what does that mean for fantasy football? By the way, before I start on the screen, I did all the previous in video 1. I did all the previous positions. I did quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end from projections perspective for half point PPR. These are the DST and kicker ones that we'll go through. So getting into the game, Kyler Murray is my quarterback 5 this week. Matt Stafford, my quarterback 14 this week. Both are starting and viable this week. When we get into the running backs here, Kyron Williams is my running back 3. I think this is a brilliant matchup for him with game script. I also think it's a great matchup for James Conner. He's my RB14 this week, and they're the only 2 you need to worry about from a running back perspective in this game, but you can definitely start both of them. Moving on to my wide receivers. Cooper Kupp, following the injury to Puka Nacua, out for 4 games, is my wide receiver 4 this week. Maurice Harrison Jr. falls outside my top 24. He's at 25. Still worth starting. Don't give up on him just yet. Demarcus Robinson, though, for the Rams. He is my wide receiver 27. I am very aggressive. I think he's going to get a lot of work here. And quite a few of you probably would have picked up Tyler Johnson. He's my wide receiver 55 this week. I still think he will offer some help in this, but he was targeted quite specifically for a game script, I think, so I haven't quite been as aggressive on him. Greg Dortch, I still think is a flex-worthy shout. He is my wide receiver 50 this week. Michael Wilson, down in the 60s. Don't need to worry about him too much. Moving on to tight ends in this game, Trey McBride is my tight end 1 this week. So you can start Trey McBride comfortably this week and feel pretty good about that one. And then also Colby Parkinson is my tight end 9. So then another player I think you can start pretty comfortably here. For the defenses here, both of them, I think there's going to be points to be had here. So I'm not overly bullish on either ones. The Cardinals are at 31. The Rams are faring a little bit better, but they're only at 27, so not much better. Wouldn't be starting either of the defenses here on this one. But as for the kickers, there is definitely going to be, I mean, they're not ones that'd be desperate to start, but ones that you could potentially think about if you're stuck with them. Josh Carty is at 18 and Matt Prater is at 20. Just going to move my DST rankings down a little bit so you can see where I've got everyone else. Right, moving into the second game of the slate, Chiefs-Bengals. Think we would have been a lot more excited for this one a week ago than we are now, I suppose, after the start. But I do think the Bengals will try and improve and get better as the season goes on. Patrick Mahomes is my quarterback 3 this week. Joe Burrow is my quarterback 15 this week. As for the running backs here, Isaiah Pacheco is currently sitting at running back 8, Zach Moss at running back 23, and Chase Brown running back 40. I had them flip the other way, but we've seen something. We've got something to go on, so we're going to stick with. We're going to put Brown behind Moss, at least in this instance. Moving on to the wide receivers, Rashee Rice is my wide receiver 7, Jamar Chase my wide receiver 9, Xavier Worthy. A lot of people excited about him. I have him at 45. He's a flex-worthy shot in the dark move. No pun intended on Worthy. But he's someone I would potentially be looking at there as a sort of hit and hope, but not one I'm necessarily gambling on. So just one there to think about, but don't necessarily gamble chips on. And Yoshi Vass is at 56. Probably not starting him, but he might have a better week than he did last week. That's definitely for sure. Moving on to the tight ends, and really it's just about Travis Kelce in this one. He's my tight end 3 this week, so you always don't need me to tell you to fire him up. As for the defenses here, Kansas City Chiefs set at 11. They're ones you can start. The Cincinnati Bengals, this is one you want to avoid. They're at 29. And then Harrison Butker is currently my kicker 2 on the weekend. Evan McPherson is my kicker 11. You drafted those to start every week, and they absolutely will do most weeks, and they do here this week as well. Moving on to Broncos Steelers, this is the game on the late slate. I don't think too many people will be watching, and as a result, at the moment I've got it earmarked towards Justin Fields starting. This could change. He is my quarterback 17 this week. Bo Nix quarterback 28. So definitely not one you'll be rushing out to start. Either way, a lot of people are excited about what Fields could do. He's in a different offense. He's in an Arthur Smith offense. I wouldn't necessarily get too excited about the volume of designed runs you're going to get there. As for the running backs here, Najee Harris is my highest placed running back. He is at 26 this week. And I've got the Denver running backs together, Jaleel McLaughlin at 32 and Javonte Williams at 33, with Jalen Warren sitting at 37. It's a bit of a purgatory game, all of this. I think they all kind of cut into each other. So I'm not really keen to jump in on any of them, but they're all starter worthy if you are in need of them. As for the receivers here, highest placed receiver I have is George Pickens at 29. I would love him to have Russell Wilson. I think he would jump up in my ranks. But I think as a result with Fields, I think he's going to be a little bit limited, and I just like others better. So he can definitely elevate into the wide receiver 2 conversation. But as I said in the week, I actually think he's a heavily underrated wide receiver. I've caught him something as a better week. He got targeted 12 times last weekend, so I've got him at 35. Josh Reynolds is my next highest placed wide receiver, but he is at 71. I am fading at all costs. And then as we get to the tight ends, typically Denver's a really good matchup for tight ends, but they were really good last week, so I am skeptical here, and I am a bit low on Pat Freiermuth down at 22. So I actually don't have any of the tight ends in this matchup as starter worthy, but one team I do have starting high up is my Pittsburgh Steelers defense. They are the DST3 this week. The Broncos down in 16th, potentially startable. Can definitely get turnovers off Fields. They could elevate from there. They could be a sneaky play if you're looking to get out on a few other teams right now. And then as the kickers progress here, Chris Boswell is just sitting outside my top 12. He is at 13. And then Will Lutz is at 27 this week. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, and it's the Texans versus the Bears. CJ Stroud is my QB7 this week. Caleb Williams is all the way down to QB20. Just worried it will take a bit of time for him to get going. So not a player I'm necessarily rushing to start this week. In Superflex, he will be fine. As for the running backs here, I've got Joe Mixon off the back of that fantastic performance. I think you'll find it a little tougher this week. He is at RB11 this week, though, so still a must start. DeAndre Swift, I think, will find it much tougher. It's a terrible matchup for him. I have him all the way down at running back 29. As for the wide receivers, highest placed wide receiver is Nico Collins. He sits at wide receiver 12. DJ Moore is at wide receiver 13. Tank Dell is at wide receiver 14. Keenan Allen is at wide receiver 21, provided he goes. He is questionable at the moment. Do keep an eye on that injury. And Stephon Diggs is at 24. So there is a lot of players you can start in this game. That's 5 wide receivers you can start in this game. Potentially, I'm going to get asked about Tyler Scott. Some people are really excited about him. I don't quite know why. He's not one I would be considering starting at this stage. So I would stay well away from him this week. And by the way, I've not mentioned Roman Dunze because I don't necessarily think he goes. If he does, he's still not someone I'd consider starting this week. As for the tight ends here, Dalton Schultz I have down at 18. He is questionable, but I would expect him to go. Cole Kmet at 25 tight end. I would move away from him ASAP. And then the defenses. So I have the Houston Texans at 13 and the Bears at 22. You can play the Texans this week. I think that might be quite a shrewd play and pick up this week. The defense is pretty good. As for the kickers, Kami Fairbairn is my kicker 3 this week, and Cairo Santos is down at 16, startable, but not necessarily the main event here. As last but not by no means least, the Eagles and the Falcons on Monday Night Football. Jalen Hurts is currently my quarterback 2 this week, so definitely a start option. I've been pretty vocal about my Kirk Cousins views. He's at 25 this week, and I don't feel comfortable starting him in any scenario. I am probably a little lower on the consensus on Saquon Barkley and others, but I still have him inside the top 10. He is my RB10 this week. Bijan Robinson is currently my RB3. As it stands, I think he gets a lot of work. I have Tyler Algier all the way down at running back 48 as it stands. As for the wide receivers, A.J. Brown currently sits as my wide receiver 6. Devontae Smith is my wide receiver 20. I have Drake London as my wide receiver 31. I have to think at some point it will come right for him, but I'm a bit concerned right now, and I am definitely lower than the consensus there on him as it currently stands. Darnell Mooney is at my wide receiver 57. When I look at the tight ends here, Dallas Goedert is currently sitting at tight end 11. George and Kyle Pitts is at tight end 7, both starting options for me. And then I have just realized I've not shared my kicker rankings before I do the DSTs and kickers. So I'm just going to pull these up here for people to have a squiz at. So you can see those, the opening 90, and I'll scroll through the end just a second. DSTs here, I have the Philadelphia Eagles at 9. They're definitely a starting option this week. The Atlanta Falcons at 23 are certainly not. And then the kicker options. Jake Elliott is at kicker 6. Young Hoku is at kicker 9. They are both starting options this week. I'm going to flash you to the rest of the kickers so you can see them and make a note and see that we do this all the way down here at 5 Yard Rush. That is going to do it. That is the Fantasy Football Bible, the weekly matchups podcast. Sorry it's in 2 parts this week. Try and endeavor not to have that next week for you. Again, you can get access to the rankings that I do every week over on Patreon at patreon.com/5 Yard Rush. And the FFCC is open as a casual reminder, so do make sure you take advantage and sign up for that. Any donations that come in are guaranteed for you to be in the tournament, so help us kick on and raise a significant amount of money for charity. That's going to do it for this week. I will be back tomorrow to potentially review Thursday night football and also just to tighten up a few little factoids, bits and pieces for the weekend so that you are all ready and sharp and ready to tackle and pull up those W's. Any other questions, start sits, etc., feel free to send them across. However, I think this pod answers most of those. I won't guarantee to answer every question, but I will do my best. But until Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.